All right, this lesson is for section 9.6 on factoring trinomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So that's what our target is for today. It's to factor trinomials that are of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So don't get confused by this. All that this means is that a, b, and c are just like normal numbers. So like this would be a trinomial of this form here. This might not be factorable, but this is a trinomial of this form ax squared plus bx plus c. So I've just replaced a, b, and c here with numbers 2, 3, and 1. Okay? All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is actually introduce this by factoring by grouping. So what we've done the last couple days, when you see, excuse me, when you see four terms, you always want to group the first two terms together and take out that GCF. So the GCF here happens to be 2x, and when we take out 2x, I'm left with x minus 4. Now in the second two terms, we take out the GCF. Here, the GCF, we don't see one that's obvious, so we're going to pull out a 1, a positive 1, and we'd be left with, on the inside here of the parentheses, x minus 4. We know that we're doing this correctly because we see x minus 4 repeated. So we're going to pull out that x minus 4, and now we'd rewrite this with what we're left over with. So after we take x minus 4 away from this first term, we're left with that 2x. And after we take out x minus 4 from the second term, we're left with positive 1. So this would be my answer, right? We're just reviewing what we've done before. And the reason why I want to do this is because what we're doing in this lesson focuses a lot of, on this particular skill. So what we're doing here is really important to actually factoring trinomials. It's just that they don't come in this form. Right now, instead of seeing 4 terms, we're only going to see 3 terms. Okay, so our first example that I want to start with is 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. So notice that this is a trinomial. Okay, there's only 3 terms here instead of 4 terms. And the reason why we say it's of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is because if you look at this here, we have a quadratic. It's to the second power. And the a value is just 6. Here the b value is 7, here the c value is 2. You don't really need to know much about a, b, and c quite yet. We're just focusing on trying to factor. So for right now, I just want to get you familiar with it. This is a trinomial that's quadratic, okay? All right, now, what we're trying to do with these 3 terms here is actually create a situation where we can have 4 terms. We're going to try to rewrite this trinomial as a polynomial with 4 terms, okay? And the method that we use is called splitting the middle term. Splitting the middle term, okay? I also call this the x method, and this is why you see this x over here, all right? So the first thing you're going to do, and I've got the steps all written down here below, but I'm going to kind of shrink this so you can see it a little bit easier. The first thing that you want to do is multiply. When I refer to a and c, right down here, that means the first digit, remember this was ax squared plus bx plus c. So the a value here is 6, and the c value here is 2. So I'm going to multiply 6 times 2. So again, the first thing you do in this situation is multiply the first number here you see and the last number. So I'm going to place 6 times 2, which is 12, on the top of my x, okay? Now, directly underneath this x, I'm always going to write the number that comes in the middle, the b value. Okay, so 7. So I place the 6 times 2, which is 12, right here on the top of the x. The 7 is going to go on the bottom. Now, I'm looking to find 2 numbers that will multiply to 12, but add up to 7. Okay, so let's think about that. 2 numbers that multiply to 12 and add up to 7. So what you're going to do first is think about numbers that multiply to 12. Well, 1 times 12 is 12, but I can't add 12 or even subtract 1 and 12 to get to 7, so those won't work. So 1 and 12 are not my 2 numbers that I'm looking for. I also know 2 times 6 multiplies to give me 12, but again, 2 plus 6 and 2 minus 6 or even negative 6 plus 2, none of those combinations here would give me 7. So these numbers here don't work either. Now, I have another set of numbers that would multiply to 12. That would be 3 and 4. If I multiply 3 times 4, that gives me 12. And if I add up 3 plus 4, that would give me 7. Okay, so my 2 numbers that I'm going to be using are 3 and 4. Okay, these are really important numbers. So what we just did is we split this 7 into two different numbers, 3 and 4. So I'm going to rewrite this entire trinomial here as 4 terms now by splitting this middle term, and I'm going to draw little arrows to help you remember you want to split that middle term. What you do is you drop down the first and the last term. So this 6x squared is going to drop down. But we're taking that 7x and we're splitting it up into these two numbers that we just found. We're going to split that up into positive 3x, remember to attach the x, and a positive 4x, okay? Even though the numbers were 3 and 4, we want to make sure that we keep the variable the same. So we want to keep that x here in both terms. And then finally, we just drop down that plus 2 here at the end. So these first and last terms, they just drop down completely. The middle term gets split up into two different terms, 3x and 4x, okay? All right, now, from here, this is just like what we've been doing the last couple days. Now we've got 4 terms. Now this is a problem like this. We're going to factor the first 2 terms. We're going to group the first 2 terms and factor out that GCF, okay? The GCF here happens to be 3x. And once I pull out 3x from 6x squared, I'm left with 2x. And once I pull 3x from 3x here, I'm left with a positive 1. So now I move on to the next set of terms, 4x and 2. I'm going to pull out the GCF here, which is positive 2. Okay, and then I'm going to take out that 2 from 4x. That leaves me with 2x. Take out 2 from 2, and I'm left with a positive 1. So we're always dividing. When I say take out, I mean dividing. Okay, now, since we see the same exact expression in both terms, that means that's the GCF here. I can pull out 2x plus 1. Okay, and again, left over, after I pull out that 2x plus 1, here I would have 3x, and here I would have positive 2. Okay, so this is a much longer process, but this is the final answer here that we're looking for. And this is what we did basically. We took a trinomial, which only had these 3 terms to begin with, okay? We created a polynomial with 4 terms here by splitting this middle term up into 2 different numbers. 3 plus 4 would give me 7, so I'm able to break up that number into these 2 here. And then since I have 4 terms, now I just factor by grouping, which is something that we've been practicing a lot. Okay, so this is quite a long process. We're definitely going to get a lot more practice. I'm only going to show you one example in the video. Tomorrow we'll do a lot in the warm-up, but please make sure you ask questions and re-watch this as well. This is probably going to be the hardest part, is remembering how to find the numbers, and especially doing the mental math here to get these numbers here. But I'm going to give you some tips and strategies to help you figure that out. This is probably the hardest thing that we've done all year, so don't worry if you don't get it right away. We just got to practice at it, okay? All right, great job. See you guys in class tomorrow.